Hoiberg will launch the three. Oh, he hits!
Clobber to left field. Another double for Washington. This time it's Nick Kresnak.
But no doubt, 2-run, go-ahead homer in the 7th. The bat flip puts the exclamation mark on a comeback.
An RBI knock from Kresnak, who's had an incredible night. Sam Hoiberg, the son of the coach, to steal the bucket.
Welcome back to the sports section, episode 12. We got a dozen for you at this point. I'm Matthew Mounsey, joined by our guy, Tim Daly. Thanks for coming back. You're a reoccurring guest at this point. I don't think we can call you a guest anymore, really, but thanks for being back with us, Timmy. Always good to see you,
It's
brother.
always good to be on, man. Appreciate you having me.
We were just talking about it a little bit off camera, but for those watching the YouTube or the video feed, you got a good-looking sweater on there.
Yes, sir. This is a Quebec Nordiques sweater. So first off, shout out the Nordiques, baby. And this is the great Joe Sakic. Joe Sakic, 1-9. So the Nordiques were a team that turned into the Colorado Avalanche later on. And that's who Joe Sakic is a legend for. I got a quick story for you. So great player in the NHL named Ty Domi, whose son plays for the Maple Leafs. Ty Domi's a Maple Leafs legend. One of his most famous quotes is, "Gave you so many rights, you'll be begging for a left." So, I mean, that's my type of guy right there. But one time, he's just motherfucking Sakic from the bench, chirping him, letting him have it. And one of his teammates tugs him down, pulls him back on the bench and goes, "Hey, sir, that's Mr. Sakic. We don't disrespect Mr. Sakic."
You don't fuck with that guy.
No,
right
you don't
there,
fuck
buddy.
with a legend, man.
Dude, speaking of, I saw a video on Instagram today from the Kachuk Brothers podcast. Those dudes are so funny.
I mean, they're beauties, man. You saw it in the Four Nations. They both threw hands within the first 5 seconds of that game. Looking forward to the Olympics this year.
Yeah, one of them was like, yeah, I've gotten a couple 10-minuters, and whenever I'm in the bin for a lengthy period, especially if we got an intermission, I'm always bringing some upper decks with me. I got some Zin guys headed into the box over there, and one time I just threw about 3 of them in my top shelf, and I was just buzzing when I got back on the ice. I was feeling good.
I think I saw that, man. That's the great Matthew Kachuk, who was classmates with Jason Tatum at Chaminade.
The Chaminade Academy
Yes,
of
sir.
Learning.
Shout out St. Louis, Missouri.
Indeed. Not to be confused with Christian Brothers College, where Jason Tatum's father is the basketball coach. Didn't go there.
Did not.
Well, I wanted to talk about college football playoff first, but if we're going to talk about college football, I don't think we can bury the lead here. Holy shit, what the fuck is going on with Sharon Moore? Michigan doesn't have a football coach.
It's unreal. I mean, especially for a job as coveted as Michigan, to not have, to have the Jim Harbaugh thing go down, and it was like, all right, we're kind of going to get that over with. We'll get Sharon Moore in here, and then that happens. So from a university standpoint, what do you do?
Well, how do you be that fucking stupid if you're Sharon Moore? Married with 3 children, then has an affair, allegedly, whatever. And Michigan covered this up for a little bit from what I saw. I don't know exactly who it was, but I saw a tweet last night from some reporter, and he tweeted a week ago that this happened. And he was like, Michigan is covering this up right now, but Sharon Moore had an affair. And then it comes out, and of course they fire him. And I actually think that Dave Portnoy kind of had a good take on this, that, his arrest and impending legal battles that came from last night, 2 nights ago, if you're listening to this on Friday, he wasn't the Michigan football coach at that point. So you can't really hold him accountable from a Michigan perspective, but you're Sharon Moore. I kind of feel for the guy a little bit, in the sense that his entire life is over in the span of 24 hours. You lose your wife, your kids, your mistress, and your job. Sucks to be him. But also, don't hook up with your 30-year-old secretary.
I'd say the moral of the story with that is, especially taking a job like Michigan, you're going to be in the spotlight all the time. Like, you got to recognize that. You recognize that when you take the job, when you even sign on at Michigan. And so for that to unfold, it's unfortunate, especially that it becomes, public news. especially like for the family, for everybody. That's just a difficult situation.
Yeah, definitely feel for his wife and kids. They're gonna kind of get dragged through the mud in a way that they don't deserve. But I did see, and a lot of people talked about it last night, but there's a lot of rumors about Kalen DeBoer going to Michigan. I don't see that. Do you?
I mean, he's only been at a school for like 2 years max. With that said, you can't leave Alabama. That is the number one job. It has been the number one job since Saban made it the number one job. But yeah, I just don't see a way you leave Alabama. Like, there's no better place to go maybe besides the NFL.
Even if you're getting a raise, you're never going to have more resources. You're never going to have a bigger platform. You're never going to have a better historical program. And you can say what you want about living in Nick Saban's shadow, whatever. You're still in the college football playoff. You're still a top head coach in the country. I think Michigan's a huge step down from Alabama, even with a pay raise. If DeBoer's successful at Alabama, he's going to get a bajillion dollars anyway. So, like, I don't know. Maybe he can't handle the pressure or whatever, but I don't know, man. I don't see any way he leaves Alabama.
Absolutely not. Alabama's number one job.
College football playoff rankings came out on Sunday. There were some massive headlines. We'll give you the 1 through 12. You got the Big Ten champs, Indiana. Incredible performance by Cignetti's guys, and in all likelihood, the Heisman Trophy winner, Fernando Mendoza. Ohio State loses by 3 points. They drop one spot to number 2. Georgia, the SEC champs, is in at 3. The Big 12 champion Red Raiders from Lubbock, Texas, are number 4. Oregon didn't have to play in the Big Ten title game. They're number 5. Ole Miss not in the SEC title. They're 6. Same story with A&M at 7. I want to talk about that A&M Ole Miss rankings in a second. Oklahoma also SEC. Alabama SEC. You've got 6 through 9, all out of the Southeast. Miami gets in at 10. That was the storyline. We'll get to it, no doubt. Tulane out of the American, the champions in that conference, are in at 11. And the Sun Belt champs, the Dukes out of James Madison, they can thank Duke University for getting them into the title, because if Virginia won that game, it would have been Virginia as the 4th conference champion. And there's your 1 through 12. Timmy, I think we got to start with what was the biggest headline of the weekend. And in my mind, it came down to 2 spots for 3 teams between Alabama, Miami, and Notre Dame. Notre Dame had been in the playoff rankings for pretty much the entire season from when the rankings originally came out from the committee. They released rankings on Tuesday. Then the final bracket came out on Sunday, rather. Between Tuesday and Sunday, both Notre Dame and Miami did not play. And I have a take about this, but Miami ends up jumping Notre Dame. I want to hear your thoughts on it first.
I mean, the committee kind of treated it like an episode of The Bachelor. They just let us on for so long. I mean, I think especially in Miami's case, it was like, I guess they were kind of saying like, prove it or something, in these last 5 weeks. But it just kind of felt weird that they like kind of blackballed Miami, had them way down in the rankings, and then out of nowhere, like when they played good, don't get me wrong, but did they really play as good as the teams above them to scoot into that spot? I'm not sure. And head-to-head does matter. I mean, they played in week 1. That's a tough conversation to have right now.
Head-to-head does have to matter. So this is my take on it. I'm okay with the field. I'm okay with how it transpired, the 12 teams that are in. Especially with the current setup and the 5 conference champions, it makes sense to me what the committee did. But I still think the committee did a dog shit job this entire season. And I think it's partially to blame for there being a new committee chair for the last 3 weeks. The Arkansas AD, whatever his name is. Do you remember his name? I don't know, but he sucks. He started his career as the chair by making a fucking 6'7" joke on national television before he even said anything. The guy's a grade A moron. And the way that they explained this didn't make sense to me, because To start, the committee established, and this has been the precedent, that you're not going to get punished for playing in your conference championship game.
Correct.
Right? Ohio State did not get punished. Alabama did not get punished. But then you get to BYU at 11. And BYU certainly got punished because they got their ass kicked by Texas Tech once again. And I don't think BYU deserved to get in. But they moved BYU off the 11 line. Alabama got their shit blown out by Georgia as well in the SEC title, and they didn't even blink at 9. And what the committee had said was that they previously had not compared Notre Dame to Miami directly as a 2-team group. They said they compared Notre Dame, Miami, and BYU as a 3-team group. Okay, that's fine with me. But they then moved BYU off the cut line at 11 so that they could compare Miami and Notre Dame directly, despite having already established that teams would not be punished for losing a championship game. BYU was punished, and that's the reason that Miami is in the playoff. And I don't really see a lot of people talking about it because if BYU goes to Jerry World and they lose to Tech by 3, they're still out of the playoff, but they're not moving off the 11 line. And then Notre Dame's in the playoff, right?
That situation as a whole was just so weird and how the committee broke it down. And I've seen a few different arguments. Like, for example, Alabama did beat Georgia earlier this year. So people are kind of saying like, oh, well, maybe Alabama shouldn't be punished because, their prior meeting against Georgia, as opposed to BYU who did lose to Tech twice. But nowhere in that equation, for example, do you see Miami moving ahead of BYU? Miami was not a part of that conversation whatsoever. And so I think to out of nowhere, again, the way that they handled the whole Miami situation throughout the season was terrible more than anything. And that was the point to me that was probably highlighted is the way they handled Miami.
Yeah, I think they did a very poor job but with the Miami Notre Dame debate, and Miami shouldn't have been ranked as low as they were when the first rankings came out. But my ultimate problem with it is you're deciding between a playoff team based on how many points the number 4 team in the country beats the number 11 team in the country by. That game has no effect on whether Notre Dame or Miami is a better or more deserving football team to get the chance to play for a national title. And I've been on the ND bandwagon. I've said on this show that I think Notre Dame has a better chance to win a national title than Miami does. And to your point on the BYU-Miami comparison, BYU has more wins than Miami and Notre Dame. Okay, they got blown out by Tech twice. Their best win is Utah, which is a good win, but other than that, they don't have a ton of great wins. Who are Miami's good wins besides Notre Dame? They played a weak ACC schedule, and they lost 2 games in conference.
That abysmal game on Friday night against Louisville and Carson Beck, 4 interceptions. That game was really bad. And then I think we pointed out earlier this year, I mean, that loss to SMU is not good either. Like TCU, for example, steamrolled SMU earlier this year. Like we saw the team that SMU is. And to hold that point, we saw the team that SMU is in Berkeley.
The week after they fire their head coach and SMU loses in the last week of the season at California. There was no one at the game.
Now, that's what I will note real quick. And what we will appreciate is the chaos in week 13 of the college football season / the chaos that ensued over the conference championships this past weekend. Like that whole Duke Virginia situation was outrageous.
It ruled.
Duke comes out in overtime, and what happens in overtime, right? We're always scoring in the first 2 plays with these stupid college rules. Every time we're scoring in the first 2 plays. And then right after that, Virginia, I think, gets a 15-yard penalty, and we decide to run a double pass on the first play of overtime?
Double pass.
I mean,
throwing lateral.
Yeah, we're not throwing it once, we're throwing it twice.
I also want to put some of the blame on the Atlantic Coast Conference for how the college football playoff transpired. Because Duke Miami, Pittsburgh, and I believe Georgia Tech were all tied at 6-2 in conference. And the Mountain West has now set the standard for how these conference title games should be determined. The tiebreakers are a complete joke. If they had reasonable tiebreakers that maybe said, hey, the highest ranked college football playoff team in the rankings out of the tiebreaker makes the title game. Miami goes to the title game. They probably beat Virginia, and then they're an automatic qualifier to the playoff, and they get in and Notre Dame gets in. And we don't have to deal with this clusterfuck.
Absolutely agree.
We need to reanalyze and fucking reset everything with these tiebreakers because it killed college football this year. And we don't have as good of a playoff as we would have if the ACC wasn't an embarrassment of a conference this year.
Absolutely agreed. And you just see that mediocrity. Like, at every point, it's like they had their chances this year. G-Tech's fate was in their own hands with 2 weeks left in the season, and they lose to Pitt. We already talked about Miami. They had their chances this year. SMU had their chances. Virginia had their chances. And none of these teams seemed to pull away or anything.
So I've said that I don't mind how the bracket played out. And I don't. I'm okay with the 12 teams that are in. But I do have one very, very serious concern that makes no sense in the world to me. How on earth is Texas A&M 7 and Ole Miss is 6? A&M started the season 11-0. They lost a tight game to the best team on their schedule at Texas. It's not like Ole Miss made the SEC title game. They lost to Georgia. Both very good losses, but A&M was a better team than Ole Miss the entire season. Am I missing something?
No, I think that's a great point. And I recall we actually talked the night after Texas A&M lost to Texas. And we thought at that time the lowest Texas A&M really could drop was 5. We didn't, like 6 maybe the absolute max, but we thought there's no way in hell. And this was before the Lane Kiffin stuff. Like this is before Lane announced he was going to LSU. We thought Texas A&M, why be punished for losing your last game of the regular season? And that's how it unfolded for the SEC title game as well.
I just can't believe that Ole Miss is ranked ahead of A&M. They're both great teams. And honestly, put Oregon in there too. A&M and Ole Miss both have better wins than Oregon. Oregon beat USC. That's it. That's the only top 25 team that they beat. And USC has 3 losses, and they're going to the Alamo Bowl to play the Frogs, baby. But anyway, I'm always going to hate on Oregon. I just don't think that they deserve to be 5. I can't wait until they lose to whoever it is. And I think it's going to be Texas Tech. But let's get into the first round games because we've got some bangers on the schedule. And so we were texting about this last night. I do want to kind of fill in people who might not know about it. There are 4 games. ESPN owns the rights to the entire college football playoff. Every telecast, they have the rights. But this year is the first year of a 5-year sub-license agreement between Disney, ESPN, and Turner Sports, TNT. So ESPN will telecast all 4, but 2 of them will be aired on TNT and HBO. They will have ESPN broadcast crews. I know Joe Tessitore and Jesse Palmer are doing one game. Bob Wischusen is doing another. And Louis Riddick is on color with him, I believe. So that is a little bit weird to me, but, kind of whatever. Every other game throughout the rest of the playoff will be on ESPN, but this is now an established thing. This is year 1 of 5. So get ready for college football games to be on TNT because they broadcast college football games all season.
We've seen, I think we mentioned it a little bit, but I think TNT not having the NBA anymore plays a huge factor in this. And it was like, I guess they show a couple NHL games a year, but not really. But overall, TNT doesn't really have any coverage of sports left. It's just funny that of all things, they're getting college football now.
It's hilarious to me. So the A&M and Ole Miss debacle that we just covered it does set up 2 rematches in the first round. Let's start Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on ABC. The number 9 ranked Crimson Tide going to Norman in a rematch against number 8 Oklahoma. Alabama is a 1.5 point road favorite. I think this is the best game of the first round.
100%. This game is going to be absolutely electric, setting the stage early in the weekend.
Oklahoma was Alabama's only conference loss in the regular season before they got boat raced by Georgia in the SEC title. Alabama ran for -3 yards in that game, by the way. Just a note. Not good. Not good at all. That game was about a month ago now, November the 15th. Oklahoma on top 23-21. And looking back on that game, it was a fun game, but it was really defined by Alabama just not being able to take care of the football. They had 3 turnovers, 2 fumbles, and Ty Simpson threw an interception despite playing well in that game. What do you remember?
My biggest takeaway from that game, honestly, was that was the first time we'd seen John Mateer back since he had that hand surgery. He really wasn't himself against Texas in that loss a couple weeks prior, but the way Mateer played in Tuscaloosa that week was absolutely outrageous. With that said, I don't blame DeBoer for going to Bama last year. I could still hate him for it as a Huskies fan, but I think he's going to have his black sweatshirt on Friday, and the Crimson Tide are going to beat the Sooners.
I'm with you on that. I think this is a really hard game for Oklahoma to win, even though it's going to be at home. And we talked about the SEC a little at the top, but Oklahoma is the number 8 team in the country. They finished 6th in their own conference. There was never a debate even about Oklahoma or Alabama compared to Notre Dame. And I think that could have been a debate that probably should have been had at some point. I don't know if it would have changed the bracket, but Oklahoma's just been kind of seen as a team over the last few weeks, just like, oh, they're in. With 2 losses, they're in. It was after that Alabama win. They were like, okay, take care of business, and OU's in. OU's very good, but I don't think they can win a national championship. Oklahoma does have 5 ranked wins this year. These are teams that were ranked at the time. Those are Michigan, Auburn, Tennessee, Alabama, Missouri. And Mateer has been good since he's been back from injury. But even against Georgia in the SEC title, the Alabama defense was able to make a couple impressive plays. And I see them turning Oklahoma over a couple times.
Yeah, absolutely. What you were talking about earlier with the Oklahoma-Alabama situation, how they got in the playoff. One thing I'd just tie that back to real quick is the Texas A&M loss in the final week of the year. Because had Texas A&M won that game, Alabama wouldn't have been in the SEC title. So that also brings up a very interesting case. In terms of this week, if Alabama gets their starting running back, it might change the game. Ty Simpson's got to take care of the football more than anything. The interceptions have just killed them in their losses this year, but I still think he's a really good quarterback capable of, great things. And I think they're going to beat Oklahoma, and that Indiana-Alabama matchup is going to be unreal.
It's going to be incredible. Simpson did play well against Oklahoma the first go-around, but Brent Venables does have a really, really good defense this year. Simpson was 28 of 42 for 326 and a touchdown, did have an interception as well. Mateer was able to run the ball a little bit against Alabama in that game. We haven't seen a ton of mobile quarterback play against the Alabama defense. I just wonder how they'll be able to manage Mateer if he starts going on the ground,
Yeah, he's a very capable runner. And the point you make about the defense, I actually just thought about this. Oklahoma fans, how do you feel about having this defense back when Baker or Kyler was the quarterback?
Oh, they would have won every game by 100.
It would have been unreal. With that offense that they had combined with this defense, they would have been untouchable. But now it's a tale of 2 stories.
Yeah, we've talked about the Baker and Mahomes game, which is probably the greatest college football game of all time. But you look back at those Oklahoma offenses, like what they had Hollywood Brown, who else?
CeeDee Lamb, Mark Andrews, like they just had dogs all over the field.
It was unbelievable. So let's move to Saturday. We have 3 games, noon Eastern, 3:30 Eastern, 7:30 Eastern. We've talked about how weird it is that Oregon and James Madison are primetime Saturday night. I don't get that. I think you throw that on Friday and get rid of it and let Oklahoma, Alabama go primetime. But regardless, let's go to College Station. The number 10 Hurricanes gonna have a real test on the road against the somehow number 7 ranked Texas Fighting Aggies, Texas Tech, or fucking whatever. Fighting Aggies, A&M, the Colt, the Thumbs. Yeah, right here, buddy. Anyway, A&M 3.5-point favorites. Marcel Reed did not have his best game against Texas in the last week of the season. He got a little banged up in the first half, had that ankle injury that he came back in. I think he will likely have enough time to be 100% healthy in this game. Carson Beck, in a hostile environment with 115,000 redneck fans at 11 a.m. in College Station, I don't know if he can do it.
Point I'm gonna make to this as a Washington Husky fan and dealing with Mario Cristobal over at Oregon. Mario Cristobal, for some reason, loses the games that he should 100% win, written off as wins. But dude, he hangs around in these tough games, in these tough environments. Mario Cristobal tends to hang. With that said, they tend to be the most undisciplined, lack of attention teams on earth. But aside from Alabama, Oklahoma, that's the next best game in this first round, no doubt about it.
Agreed. And we get them back to back. Both these teams, actually, I guess not necessarily Oklahoma as much, but Texas A&M, when you look at it, sure, they started 11-0, but they kind of played a weak schedule this year. Their best wins come in week 2 at Notre Dame, and then at LSU and at Missouri, teams that they should have handled quite easily, and they did. But they haven't really had a test besides Texas, and they failed that test. So I'm going to be very interested to see how ready Mike Elko's guys are against the top 15 team all season long, and now the number 10 ranked Hurricanes, who lost a game at home, and the last time they were in the state of Texas, they got beat by Southern Methodist, who lost to Cal. How do you see this game playing out?
Big thing for Miami is getting going early. Miami's got to score the first touchdown, no doubt. Big thing they got to do is stop the run game. Texas A&M is absolutely dangerous in the run game. Both their running backs and Marcel Reed's ability to run the ball, they got to put a stop to that as quickly as possible. On Miami's end, on offense, Carson Beck, do not turn the ball over. Main thing is show why you transferred. You got to prove yourself.
And A&M has the best pass rush in the country as far as I'm concerned. Both of their defensive tackles seem like first-round guys to me. Their pass rush has been phenomenal. They had Arch off of his spot all game. But we talked about the Carson Beck picks. Marcel Reed is no stranger to turning the ball over himself. He's thrown 10 interceptions in 12 games this year and has 3 multi-interception games. I think the biggest point of emphasis for A&M has to be getting the ball out quickly and getting it to KC Concepcion.
Yeah, Miami, do not punt the ball to him.
Don't
Fight song will be playing while he's still running.
He's the fastest guy in the country. It's simply outrageous how that dude moves. And he's the best kick returner, best punt returner in the country. I don't necessarily know how his game translates to the next level. Concepcion will be playing on Sundays. I could see him being a Percy Harvin type, where he is just out there and houses kicks every 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know.
Absolutely.
A&M minus 3.5 in this game. Who do you think gets this done?
I'd probably have to lean A&M just based on the fact that I don't trust Carson Beck whatsoever. I know I spoke about Mario Cristobal and Carson Beck earlier, but I still think Texas A&M probably gets it done. With the house that Johnny built, you got 110,000 screaming, and yeah, exactly. Fight Tex Aggie. Ever living, ever loving. Sorry.
It's ridiculous. I don't
No,
know where I was
I'm gonna give it to Mike Elko's guys though.
Elko! Agreed. How about that video I sent you last night of Scotty? At some point, I'm gonna get to ask Tim Kirchin about Pete Alonso!
Who just signed with the Orioles. Yeah, it's so great.
Oh, so good. Yeah, I think A&M gets this done too. And I think it's going to be the pass rush. I think they're going to sack Carson Beck like 10 times. And I just don't think strip sack. I just don't think he's going to be able to hold on to the ball. I like A&M to advance, and Ohio State's going to have their hands full in the second round, if so. Let's go to the afternoon. 3:30 Eastern. This is on TNT and HBO Max, as well as True TV. If for whatever reason you're watching the Impractical Jokers marathon that's on that channel 24/7, you're going to have to take a break from it at 3:30 Eastern. Lane Kiffin is gone. We've seen this game before. The Green Wave and Tulane headed to Ole Miss. Ole Miss 17.5-point favorites at home. The last time they played, it was 45-10. I feel bad for Tulane.
To your point, first off, I think the only time True TV is utilized in my home is that third or fourth week of March. You know, where they play basketball on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nonstop. That's about the only time True TV comes out. With that said, aside from the Lane Kiffin stuff, I think it's just hard to beat a team twice. Tulane having film on Ole Miss, I definitely think they keep it within that 17.5 margin. Definitely not saying they win the game, but I think they keep it within that 17.5.
They've gotten a lot better as well since the last time that they played, which was on September the 20th. Since then, Tulane is 8-1. I believe Ole Miss has the same record during that time span, with their one loss coming to Georgia by 8 points. While Lane Kiffin is gone, Charlie Weiss Jr. is back, as is the rest of the coaching staff that is headed to Baton Rouge. I think that's going to be big for Trinidad Chambliss. I forget who it was, maybe Tim Tebow, but a former quarterback talking about how big it is to have the same voice in your ear. And I think that does make a big difference. Trinidad Chambliss hearing Charlie Weiss calling the plays as usual, I think he maintains his comfortability, and it's a home game. I think that we see the Ole Miss offense look as they usually do.
The problem this year has not been their offense either. If anything, it's been that they can't stop teams from scoring when it comes down to it. But I think we're still going to see a lot of points out of the Rebs. And for John Summerall's guys, right? For the Green Wave, you know, fellas, go play like you're trying to get a scholarship in Gainesville, man. Get on that flight to Gainesville. Go ball out.
Why not? And I mentioned Charlie Weiss Jr., just for the record, the East Carolina offensive coordinator, John David Baker, he'll be the new offensive coordinator at Ole Miss come fall. Charlie Weiss will be at LSU. Jake Retzlaff really struggled the first go-around. Tulane quarterback against that Ole Miss defense, he was 5 of 17 for 56 yards. However, he did not turn the ball over, and he did run it very well, as did Tulane as a team. They had 178 on the ground. Trinidad Chambliss, however, ran the ball even better than Jake Retzlaff in that game. He had 14 carries for $112 and threw it for 307 and 2 touchdowns. Kawan Lacey had 70 yards and 2 scores on the ground. But this Tulane defense really impressed me last week. I gave out North Texas as the super missile whale mortal whatever of the week. Didn't get there. And that one's on me. But they kept the highest scoring offense in the nation under 30 points, and they turned them over 5 times. If you can turn over Drew Mestemaker 5 times, you can certainly turn over anyone in the country at least once.
Absolutely. There was a couple fortunate bounces their way, like on the punt returns. But overall, yeah, Tulane's defense was super impressive, man. They made Mestemaker look uncomfortable all night, didn't let him get out of the pocket, and really just didn't let him do what he wanted to do. And that's throw the ball, sling that thing all over the field.
Mean Green couldn't get it done. I agree. I think Tulane keep this inside the number. They're going to have to rely on Jake Retzlaff to run the ball. And he's going to have to do it all the time, and he's going to have to do it well. And he's going to have to slide when he needs to, and he's going to have to take big hits when he needs to. If he can stay as tough as he has been this season, I think Retzlaff and the Green Wave can make this a competitive game, and I think Ole Miss pulls away late in the second half. But you can never count out a hungry dog on the road. They got so much to play for and nothing to lose.
Yeah, absolutely. On top of that, for Retzlaff, I mean, as long as he doesn't go 5 for 16 again for 56 yards, he should be in business.
Another team that I do not think will keep it inside the number is the night game. I want nothing more than the Dukes to put up a fight in Eugene. I just don't think they got the guys. Jimmys and Joes, not X's and O's in this one. I think it's Oregon by a very wide margin. James Madison has won 11 in a row. Their only loss came week 2 to Louisville, who beat Miami. Louisville beat 2 college football playoff teams, the Cardinals, the multiple, not to be confused with the Cardinal, singular. But JMU struggled a little bit in the Sun Belt title game against Troy. The final was 31-14, but it was a lot closer than that. I think that JMU ended up scoring 2 touchdowns in the last 5 or 6 minutes, maybe. And the Troy quarterback was out the entire second half. The JMU defense was okay, but their offense didn't impress me. I just don't think they can go with Oregon. You?
I 100% agree. It hurts me to say, of course, because I always root for Oregon to lose.
Always.
Yeah, I guess I just got to root for Texas Tech. Just looking ahead.
Yeah, I don't want the Ducks to win, but they continue their streak of not playing anyone through 13 games. And this pissed me off so bad. I was getting so much shit in our TikTok comments about it was me acknowledging Oregon's weak schedule. I never said that they weren't a great football team. They are. They have the guys, and they played well all season long. They were the number 5 team in the country for a reason. But when you're an Oregon fan and you have to justify Penn State being a good win, you haven't played anybody. Good teams don't go 5-7. They don't. That's not a good win. It doesn't matter what they were ranked. It doesn't matter who's on their roster. It doesn't matter who their coach is. If they go 5-7, they're a bad football team. And if you have to say that it's a good win, you haven't played anybody. Because your 2-point win at Iowa was way better than that shit. You won by 3 at Penn State. Congrats. They didn't make a bowl game. That's what I got. You got anything else on Oregon,
No,
JMU?
that was awesome. You said it all. That was awesome.
So, going through our first round here, I think we kind of agreed that we're laying the chalk on all the favorites, all the higher seeds, except for Alabama, who is favored in that game as the 9 seed. Let's talk a little bit about the rest of the playoff. We go to the quarterfinals. If it is Texas A&M getting it done against Miami in College Station, they would then have to turn around and be the first game of the second round. That game would be on Wednesday, the 31st of December, New Year's Eve, 7:30 p.m. prime time on ESPN. That would be the Cotton Bowl. It would take place at Jerry World in Arlington, Texas, and I don't know what the spread would be on that game, but Ohio State having to play A&M in Jerry World, it's a tough challenge.
Yeah, Ohio State's definitely rooting for Miami next weekend. That's a tall task to ask for Ohio State, a team that just played Indiana in Indianapolis. So they definitely feel like they're getting screwed a little bit, totally unintentional. But I think to play in the Big Ten title in somebody else's home state and then have to play your first college football playoff game, which is going to be a home game for A&M if that's the case, that's tough.
I don't feel bad for Ohio State, though, because you're the number 2 team in the country. If you would have taken care of business against Indiana like you were supposed to, you'd be going to the Rose Bowl, and you wouldn't have to worry about it. Sorry, should have won.
On the bright side of that, at least when my guide shows up and it shows the college football playoff of the Rose Bowl, at least when I see Ohio State on there, it's just them blowing out Oregon and not a more recent one. Because I will always watch Ohio State over Oregon last year. At least just the first half.
That was my favorite college football playoff game in the last few years.
Oh, besides the Dogs beating Texas, absolutely.
Yeah, and the Frogs, of course, for me. But Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to look up what the spread of this game would be.
I would imagine it would probably have to be like somewhere in like the 2.5 range max.
Whoa. Okay. The Google AI response was definitely not what it should have been. Wow, is this right? Okay, what do you think the spread would be?
Does it have A&M like 3.5?
A&M by 4.
Wow.
Yeah, A&M 4-point favorites against Ohio State in that game. That shocks me a little bit. I thought that it would have been maybe a 1-point spread either way, but I mean, Ohio State doesn't have any momentum. They're gonna have a long layoff after having to play that extra game and it not going their way. It could be an early exit for the Buckeyes, but I wonder what the spread would have been if they would have beaten Indiana. Because then they're 13-0, and they're the consensus best team in the country. Okay, so A&M would be 4-point favorites in the Cotton Bowl against Ohio State. Then we go to New Year's Day, Thursday, 12 noon Eastern. We will head to the Orange Bowl, the site of this year's national title, at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, Florida. The number 4 ranked Red Raiders of Texas Tech await the winner of Oregon, James Madison. Likely going to get to see Tech and Oregon in that game, and that really excites me.
The Texas Tech Oregon matchup, I'm really hoping that would be the case. I think for Oregon, a team that likes to play fast, they like to get out in space. And Texas Tech, a team that really makes you play in confined spaces really all throughout this year and really challenges you and doesn't give you a whole lot to work with. That would be an unbelievable matchup at the 4-5.
I would just love to see how it shakes out between the Oregon offense and the Texas Tech defense. That Tech D has just given everybody fits this year, including BYU, whose offense scored on everyone all season. They put up like 50 every week, it seemed like.
Yeah, that Texas Tech defensive line, I mean, they get pressure in no more than 3 seconds every time. You got to get the ball out quick against them. But then as you saw this week, man, their linebackers and their safeties, they're ready to pick that ball off. They're ball hawks back there, and they'll take that thing the other way.
I did think it was a little bit of a crime. What's his first name? The Texas Tech linebacker.
Jacob Rodriguez.
Yeah, Jacob Rodriguez was not named a Heisman finalist. I thought there should have been 5 Heisman finalists this year with Jacob Rodriguez in there.
I 100% agree. Unfortunately, the Heisman has turned into such a quarterback award these last few years. But I think when you're going based on the best football players, you got to bring 2 quarterbacks. You got to bring Mendoza and Pavia most likely. But the next 2 football players in the country behind them have to be Jeremiah Love and Jacob Rodriguez.
I don't see how it could be any other way. Julian Sands had a good year. He's got 2 first-rounders playing receiver, and he's got the best defense in the country. Makes it a little bit easier. And not discounting anything that Julian Sands has done, he just hasn't been as good as Mendoza or Pavia.
Yeah, I just think, again, that's a tough case when you're not the best player, even on that side of the ball, on your own team. It's like, how are you supposed to say he's the best player in the country? And unfortunately, I guess the Heisman last year, you see that race without the quarterbacks, but overall, it's just turned into such a quarterback award.
What do you think the hypothetical line is on Oregon, Texas Tech?
Considering Oregon has to travel across the country, I'd probably imagine Texas Tech's probably 1.5-point favorites.
Oregon is favored in this one by 4.5.
Ooh, wow.
Going coast to coast.
I think Scotty's mentioned this one before, but what's the legal limit? How can I exceed it on Tech?
Give me the legal limit and give me the Red Raiders because I want the money line and I want all the points.
Yeah, if you're giving Tech points in that game, I'd probably take them 100% just based on how good their defense is.
Another potential cross-country matchup would be for the Crimson Tide. If they take care of business in Norman, they're going to have to go to Pasadena on New Year's Day and play the best team in the land, the 13-0, number 1 ranked Indiana Fighting Signettis, the Hoosiers, coming off a win over Ohio State. And just give me popcorn for this game. I want it. I want it bad. I want Bama, and I want Indiana, and I want it at the Rose Bowl. Give it to me now.
That game would just be unbelievable. I think the main thing again is seeing the Indiana faithful show up for their team. The football state that Indiana has kind of been in denial on, considering how good Notre Dame's been, but IU historically has been the worst FBS program of all time. And so to see their fans really get behind them and their student body is really cool. And I really hope they show out in full force in Pasadena, which I'm assuming they will.
I don't doubt that they would travel. They showed out in Indianapolis. Of course, that is a much shorter trip, but when you have a once in a lifetime season, you go. When I was at TCU and we go to the college football playoff and the national title game and kind of run through everybody the whole season, we knew it was a once in a lifetime thing and we all went. And TCU has a much smaller fan base than any of these schools in the playoff this year, but still showed out exponentially. And I imagine it would be the same for the Hoosier faithful in Pasadena, especially that's a closer distance than both Norman and Tuscaloosa. So they have the travel benefit on their side, I guess. Final game of the first round, primetime, New Orleans, Louisiana. Gonna be a banger. It's gonna be Ole Miss and it's gonna be Georgia. Ole Miss has lost once this year. It was to Georgia. This is gonna be another rematch. And the Dogs looked real in that SEC championship game. This will kick off at 8 p.m. on ESPN New Year's Day. What do you make of the matchup?
UGA looked so good in that SEC title, and they really have looked great down the stretch overall. I mean, Kirby's a guy that is a very well accomplished coach. He's been really the best coach in the country since Nick Saban retired. He's kind of been the status quo, and yeah, Georgia looks scary. I would definitely take them over Ole Miss.
There have been so many storylines in college football this year, especially recently. You have Lane Kiffin. You have Sharon Moore. You have Indiana beating Ohio State. You have Ohio State still as a top 2 team in the country. I don't know why people are forgetting about Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs. Kirby's been the best coach in college football for the last couple years. He's got multiple national titles in the last 6 years. Don't forget about Kirby. He's got the number 3 team in the country. They slipped up once this year. So is every other team in the country except for Indiana. You just can't sleep on Georgia. So I do want to go through some picks really quick with you. I have written down my predictions here, but I want to let you go first because I think we might potentially be on the same page here as far as how the bracket shakes out. But I want to make our picks here, do a little bracket before the bracket, so to speak. We have kind of penciled in the favorites to make it through the first round. So I want you to just run through really quick your quarterfinal picks. Ohio State versus Texas A&M. Who do you like in that?
So now I'm actually going to backtrack a little bit because we've been kind of chalk in the first round. But last year we saw the 5, 6, 7, and 8 all get through, and 1, 2, 3, and 4 all get bounced in the first week. Do I think that's going to happen again? Probably not, but I think at least 2 of the teams probably go down. The first one I'm going to take right here is Texas A&M.
You've got A&M over Ohio State.
Yes, sir.
Orange Bowl. Texas Tech and Oregon. Who do you like? Easy. Rose Bowl. Indiana, Alabama.
I've been looking at this. This is the diciest one by far. Because Indiana's my team. Like, I'm rooting for Indiana to win the national title, no doubt. But God, playing Bama and then... Yeah, I'm going to roll with my Hoosiers. I'm rolling with the Hoosiers, man.
All right, so you've got A&M, Tech, Indiana, and then in the Sugar Bowl, Georgia and Ole Miss.
Got to be Georgia.
So if that is the setup, you would have A&M, Texas Tech, Indiana, and Georgia in the semifinals. The number 1 seed or the highest ranked team gets to pick where they go. The 2 semifinal games are the Fiesta Bowl in Glendale, Arizona, and the Peach Bowl in Atlanta, Georgia. If Texas Tech, Texas A&M, and Georgia are all in the semifinal, Indiana's going to Glendale. They are not going down south. So that would set up Texas Tech and Indiana in the 1 versus 4 semifinal as the Fiesta Bowl in Arizona. Who do you like in that one?
That one really comes down to it, but I think we saw the way Indiana handled the best defense in the nation this past week and how they're probably going to handle the second best defense in the country in Texas Tech. I still got to roll with the Hoosiers.
Then we go to the other semifinal. That is the Peach Bowl at Mercedes-Benz, the Benzo, in Atlanta, Georgia. Basically a home game for the Bulldogs, taking on Texas A&M and Mike Elko's guys. Who do you like there? That's a 3 versus 7.
First off, it seems like Georgia always finds a way to either play the SEC championship or one of their bowl games in Atlanta.
In this case, it would be twice.
With that said, who's that coming down the track? It's the meme machine in the red and black. Sick 'em.
Indiana, Georgia is your natty at Hard Rock in Miami for the title.
What a great run it was. IU. Got to go UGA. UGA is probably the best team right now, especially with the way Gunnar Stockton's playing. Man, if Georgia's like even within a possession or two in the fourth quarter, the way Stockton's been playing in the fourth, just lights out.
So I wrote my picks down on the whiteboard before I had you run through them there. I agree with you about Georgia, especially with Gunnar Stockton. And this isn't a typical Georgia defense. They're not as dominant as they usually are, but they've got the same guy running the show. I think it's the Bulldogs. I took the same picks as you. I got Georgia and I got Indiana in the national title game. I think it's going to be a great run for Kurt Cignetti and the Hoosiers. I think they go 15-1 this year. And I think that the national champions also go 15-1, and I think it's the Georgia Bulldogs. I think it's going to be really tough for anybody to beat Kirby this year. But yeah, we've kind of been on the same page throughout here, but and college, we don't know anything. We saw what happened last weekend. College football is so incredibly unpredictable. But I feel like the first round this year is just, it doesn't set it up well to be 4 upsets seed-wise, at least in the second round, like it was last year. And sure, some of those weren't really upsets. Arizona State and Boise State getting byes shouldn't have happened to begin with. But I think it's going to be tougher for the lower-ranked teams this year, especially against Ohio State, Indiana, and Georgia, because those are the best 3 teams in the country. And in my mind, you can kind of put them in whatever order you want. Of course, Indiana deserves to be 1. They haven't lost. Everyone else in the nation has lost. But I'm fired up. It's going to be such a good finish to the season.
We mentioned earlier in this segment, what a year it's been of college football, man. Like just the chaos that ensued throughout the year. On top of all that, you got Indiana as the number 1 team in the country. Undefeated, the only undefeated team left in the land. Like, that just wraps it up. Like, that's the story of what this college season's been.
It's been incredible, and we're in for an awesome finish. I'm excited for it. We do have another week until the first round games begin. We have Army-Navy on Saturday, and the final LA Bowl, Washington and Boise State kicking off bowl season on Saturday. I don't know who made that decision. Why are we playing that game a week after the season ends on the same day as Army-Navy? No one is going to watch. Maybe that's why the LA Bowl is going out of business.
Yeah, we didn't give America's game enough credit, man. Shout out America's game.
I'm go Navy beat Army this week.
It's all, dude. I'll say this right now: the midshipmen are the best dressed service academy. Anybody can debate me on that, and they're wrong, because it's the midshipmen, no doubt. The white caps, Navy suits, can't touch them.
If you haven't seen what Navy is wearing on Saturday yet, look it up right now. Pause the episode, type into your little Google thing, because the mids, I think it's the best jersey combo they've ever had. And that's one of the best dressed, yes, service academy, but also teams in the nation. And they are wearing some fire on Saturday. I'm probably not going to be able to watch that one. I'm going to a wedding, but it's going to be fun. You got anything else for the people here, Timmy?
Final shout out to the Hoiberg Huskers, to the man known as the mayor of Ames, and the guy that we know here on the sports section. 1. Keep it rolling, fellas. Enough said.
The Nebraska Cornhuskers are 10-0. And they just rolled Wisconsin by 30. Shout out our guy, One. They're legit. As Scott Van Pelt said on SportsCenter last night, the Mayor's got a squad. And in an era of college basketball where it's all about transfers and one and dones and whatever, Fred Hoiberg's got a shit ton of veterans on that team. And we've seen in the history of college basketball that bodes well for any team, regardless of skill. If you got the guys that know the system, play hard, and know their role, they can beat anybody in the country. Huskers are dangerous this year. Shout out to the guys. All right, another good episode. I think that's about all we got.
Appreciate you having me on as always. Thank you all for listening.
You're always welcome here on the sports section, Timmy. The Huskers play at Illinois in Urbana-Champaign tomorrow for those listening on Friday. That game is on Saturday. Sam Hoiberg will be back, as he is every Tuesday, on Tuesday. Until then, for Tim Daly, I'm Matthew Mounsey. Call God, everybody. We'll see you on Tuesday.